Our top story. Reports say sporadic attacks by anti-government armed groups are continuing into a second day despite a ceasefire announced early on Thursday. This time in the northwestern Idlib province, close to the border with Turkey.
A number of armed men tried to infiltrate via the Turkish borders into Syrian territories, of course, and the border guards over there saw them trying to infiltrate, and then clashes took place as the armed men who were trying to infiltrate opened their gunfire at the Syrian guards over there. So what we know is that clashes took place, of course, but no casualties were reported. We know that the armed men who were trying to infiltrate, they pulled back into Turkish territories.
Earlier, 2 people were killed and over 2 dozen others wounded in attacks by anti-government armed groups. The Syrian government said prior to the ceasefire that it would reserve the right to respond in kind to any possible attack by what it regularly calls armed groups. The attacks come during a ceasefire brokered by the UN Arab League envoy Kofi Annan as part of a 6-point peace plan. Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said Ankara could seek NATO action against Damascus following a reported cross-border attack from Syrian soil. This comes as senior Turkish politicians warned that any NATO intervention against Syria will have grave consequences. Mehdi Golizadeh reports.
Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said Turkey could call on the NATO military alliance to secure Turkey's border with Syria. The comment came after gunfire from Syria had reportedly hit a refugee camp on the Turkish side. Erdogan has stated that Turkey, as a member of NATO, may invoke the 5th article of the military alliance's treaty, which declares that an armed attack against one of its members will be considered an attack against all of its member states and allows use of armed force. Observers believe that the comment made by the Turkish Prime Minister may be indicative of Ankara's openness to military action against Syria, but this comes as some senior politicians in Turkey have warned against any military intervention in that country. Turkey's Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu has also warned that Turkey will take all measures to respond to what it called the violation of its border by Syria.
We always reserve the right to use our national capacity to take the necessary measures in such a situation, and we always continue our consultations with our NATO allies and work with them.
Some senior politicians have criticized the notion to seek NATO's support to deal with the escalation of tensions between Turkey and Syria.
Wherever the NATO has been deployed to, it has been turned into a blood lake. Unfortunately, today NATO has turned into the military force of the global imperialism, and it has turned its weapons against Muslim states. We don't accept this.
Any NATO intervention against Syria will create chaos in the region. It will lead to a catastrophe not only for Syria, but also for Turkey and the whole region.
Turkey's foreign minister has dismissed any prompt NATO intervention against Syria and stressed that Turkey is closely monitoring the latest developments in Syria to see if a UN-brokered ceasefire would be successfully implemented in that country or not. The heightened speculation about a NATO action against Syria comes as the military alliance's Secretary General, in a news conference in Ankara earlier this year, had ruled out the idea of a NATO intervention in Syria. Any possible NATO measure against Syria may come to light in the upcoming meeting of the NATO members' foreign ministers and defense ministers that will be held in Brussels next week. Mehdi Golizadeh, Press TV, Ankara.